Yeah, the general public. What is the story? What is it that? Because let me just state this. I think that if we really want to what you're putting the story together and really get some action on this, that when you write the story, that you make sure that the public advocate, Letitia James, gets a copy of this paper, and also that you interview her, because she's the public advocate, she's the voice of the people and the conscience of the city, and she should be out there, if not every day, almost every day, speaking to this issue of the homeless population, the Community Safety Act, and any other, the Racial Act, and all these other acts that are going on. She's not stepping up to the plate that we voted her in for, and she's well aware of the homeless situation because she has had encounters with us, the picture of the homeless, on various occasions, but her voice is not being heard. So I think that if you, Rebecca, and this is GKM talking, are putting this story out, she should get top of the list, not only your copy of your first print, but she should be interviewed about this very subject matter, all these subject matters that we're talking about, because this has to be addressed, and we don't just want to be here talking about the problem, because we all know the problem. What we want to do is bring about the solution to the problem.
Yeah, of course. Well, we'll have to see exactly what the story will end up being about. I think one of the things, and the reason I'm talking to you guys, is increased security affects people in many different ways. Many of them are positive ways, some of them are negative ways. This actually leads me to a second question, well, to a next question for you guys. The crime actually has gone down in the subways, right? And maybe there isn't a need to spend millions and millions of dollars in increased security, but if there is a need to spend increased security, if you have more security cameras and more policemen, has this affected the homeless population that have maybe found themselves in the subway, whether for whatever reason? Has this helped them, or has it actually hurt them?
When you, this is Dave Super. When you say them, you mean the homeless?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Well, to that point, first of all, to me, what the police are trying to do is to do like what England did with, London did with that ring of steel of cameras all around. I think the last missing link is that there's actually no cameras in a lot of places in the subway. You have cameras on the sidewalks, you have cameras on Wall Street, you have cameras in the bank. So I think this just kind of comes full circle. But the thing is, remember, there's 468 subway stations. Now, some of them usually, to me, politically, they have the cameras. Like when we had 9/11, you have the security. I saw Army defense people at the key station, like Penn Station, 42nd. So I'm trying to figure, what if you had Utica Avenue in Brooklyn with no security? A terrorist could still get on with a bomb from there. It's all connected. 468 stations. So to me, all that was just a political move to appease people. So in my opinion, by having the cameras, what they did, they just elevate digitally the police action from being a physical one to now an electronic one. See, and I want to come back to something that a lot of people always ask, and I think Mr. Moore expressed part of it.
This is David, right?
Yes. A lot of people don't want, we always say, well, why don't go to the shelters, whatever. A lot of people want to go. One of the main things from my observation of the shelters, and I give the example of the Bronx Zoo. The Bronx Zoo, when you put animals inside, you don't put the lions with the deer or the lions with the tigers, because there's chaos. That's why you have chaos inside the shelters. We can't dump a whole bunch of people inside here. I mean, when I lived in Tompkins Square Park, we had natural selection. It's a Darwinian formula. Drug addicts will stay with drug addicts. People want to talk about, picking up cans. The cannons will stay by themselves. It's all natural selection. That does not happen in a shelter. When you go to a shelter, you have no choice. I could go in with GKM, I could go with Mr. Moore, I could go with Mr. Price. We don't know each other. Even here at the picture of the homeless, we have all kinds of people come in here, but as we move along, people coalesce in the forum groups and they educate other people, and that's where we come to be a whole. The shelter is not like that. Once they put you in there, They put you right up next to people who have mental problems, who have drug problems. They're senior citizens being beaten. We had a voluntary ex-member who was blind, and she was beaten up in one of the shelters because they would remove her, and she's supposed to be on disability. Now she's upstate. Thank God, one of our members helped her, and she got a place up there, and she's fine. But even then, I mean, she's out of New York City. She's from New York City. She has to be upstate. So the thing is, just like in the prisons where they separate, the C95s from the C78 and C76, where in the Bronx Zoo, the lion is by himself, the tiger is by himself, this is what they have to do. They have to separate people before they go in. But there are a lot of people out here who are working. Also, to the question about the things with the city, outreach of the city, this is why, like Mr. Price had schooled us to the fact that we have other outreach situation. Even the outreach people don't on the police, they always go to the worst place, the subway, some little hole or whatever. There's a lot of people who go and who are at the library, and they're at the library, the computers, doing the work, catching up with different things, the news, whatever, so that there's different forms of homelessness. They never do an outreach at the libraries. You get I hate to put it in a class way, but you get a sort of a higher form of homeless people there, functioning homeless people there, as opposed to having people who are way down, because like I always say, there's 3 H's to homelessness. There's homelessness, then there's helplessness, and then there's hopelessness. But they always seem to...
Homelessness, helplessness, hopelessness?
And hopelessness. Meaning when you get homeless, that's a natural cause. Helpless is that when you go to try to get help, you get turned away, you go to welfare, they say, well, where you came from, could you go back there and double up with somebody, whatever, and you just give up. Hopelessness is, and then you say, man, I can't maneuver the system. Hopelessness is when you just give up. And that's how you see people out in the street talking to themselves, sitting on the corner, just mumbling, or just in a sort of PTSD days. Because it is stressful out here. But at the same time, but the thing is, at least out here, as a homeless person in the street, let's come back to what I was saying, you have choices. If I don't like this position, or somebody decides, like Mr. Moore said, to throw water at me, I could get up and move my tail somewhere else. When you're in a shelter, you can't do that. If you do that, you lose your whole case. And then what? You back out in the street again? So it's a vicious revolving cycle. And it comes from, what I always tell people when I give talks, it comes from a point of view is that the system has to stop practicing social triage. Just like when you go for medical help. When I go to the Apostle, I see vans parked up on the side. They're all saying, do you want to go to rehab? Do you want to go? They get a bed. Sometimes I want to get in the bed, but I don't have a drug problem. But that Medicaid card that we have is like an American Express to these private vendors. Once you have that, they get the money, they put you inside the bed, and 2-3 days when you drive, you come back up. Now, if you don't have none of these proclivities, and you're just by yourself, you're general population. You go nowhere. That's why it took me over a decade to even get into the system.
So I'm going to stop you right there. I'm going to stop you right there because I want to go back to something you said, which is no one is doing outreach in the libraries. That was very interesting to say, and I would like you to expand on that. Why is no one doing outreach in the libraries? Why does everyone always go to the street, directly to the street?
Because first of all, and this will be a little bias on my point, no one can sell the picture of the homeless. Because we are the best people to know about this. But second, the thing is, that begs the question of who are these people getting this advice from? What they do the same thing the general public do. They walk down the street, they see Mr. Moore or GKM or Dave or Nikita back in the old days sleeping in a certain spot, and they right away say, that's a visible homeless. You have homeless people who are also in plain sight. I used to be in plain sight. I used to dress. I had 2 sets of clothes. I have a clothes that I sleep with. I have a clothes I present myself with. Until I started to represent people to the homeless in previous organizations, that's when people go who have known me a long time, like oh, I didn't know you were homeless because of how you carry yourself. But the thing is, you could carry yourself so much. But the thing is, I was doing all my fight. I fought all the battles. I won all the battles. But the thing, I didn't win the war on poverty until my social worker friend had to tell me, Dave, there's no housing for you unless you get a really good job. There's no housing except subsidized housing. Subsidized housing is all in a formula, meaning you have to be in the system. It's like the lottery. You have to be in it to win it. And that's when I went in, and that's why I went through, and you get what's called a packet to put it together and to move on in different stages. Does that answer the question?
So Rebecca, Marcus Moore real quick.
Hold on. Does that answer your question, Rebecca?
Yes, it does.
All right, thank you. I'll hand you over to Mr. Moore.
Yes, Rebecca, I just wanted to say real briefly that Picture the Homeless does outreach where no one does outreach. Now, I does outreach on my own away from the organization, and I have found out lately that is really crazy right now, and since we're talking about this thing that's called homelessness, or if you want to call it that now homelessness is now spilling over in communities such as Lexington and 53rd and Park. Okay, if you know that area, they call it west of Wall Street. So now, who knows this information but Picture the Homeless members, people like me, and these gentlemen right here at this table who's always in the street mixing and mingling where the TV cameras really don't want to come except for to exploit. So it's not just the subways. It's very ritzy neighborhoods that you see diverse people are now taking the streets.
This is GKM. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
We want to talk about solutions. Because the problem, we all know. We see it, we live it, and I can ramble on all day long about the problem. My position has always been and is the solutions. Now, we took a building count, and that building count showed us that there are more housing, abandoned housing or vacant buildings in the city of New York than there are homeless people. And so therefore we have a big question. Why, if there is more buildings vacant in the city of New York that people have not been living in for